What have you been entrusted with? Now, note, this is something really important to remember. You are only held accountable for what you alone have been entrusted with. So I see a lot of people, and I met a lot of people who carry the burden of somebody else. But the reality is, the only thing that you will be accountable for is what your responsibility was. Does that make sense? Now, when we look at life, and again, later on in the series, we're going to start digging into and unpacking sections, but I want to give you just some perspective to begin. You've been entrusted with your body. It means your physical body and your spiritual being. Okay, so you've been entrusted with you, your physical essence of who you are. You've been entrusted with your family and the friendships that you have. You've been entrusted with your current career and your finances. You've been entrusted with your time. And all of you have been given different talents and gifts that you were born with that literally make you unique. So for example, what Steve does and his gifts and talents might be completely different than what I have. And I'm only accountable for mine, not his, and vice versa, right? Christine may have something completely different as far as her talents and abilities. And that's what makes her unique. So she's going to be held accountable for her gifts and her talents and her abilities. Does that make sense so far? Mm-hmm. So what I want you to do right now is think about at least 3 to 5 talents that you have been blessed with that you could think of and write them down. Because what I want to do right now is more reflective. I'm asking a lot more questions because I want to dig into you. What are some of your talents and some of your gifts that you've been entrusted with? I'll give you 5 seconds here. All right, so as we're wrapping that up, what I want us to do is really start considering some of those talents and whether you're using them and growing them and multiplying them, or if you're not even implementing them and applying them in your life right now. That's what's really important for us to really consider where we're at. So now we're going to do a quick test, okay? I'm going to ask a question and I want you to give me a scale of 1 to 5 and write it down because we're going to total them, okay? So on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 means that if you more than double your that scale, okay? All right, so let's begin with this. So how have you stewarded your body? What do I mean by that? How have you taken care of your physical body, your mental health on a scale of 1 to 5? 1 meaning horrendous, 5 meaning I take care of my body, I'm disciplined, I eat right, I work out, I take care of reading and mental health and spiritual health. On a scale of 1 to 5, where are you? The next question is, how have you stewarded your family and relationships? So the way to look at that is, how strong are your relationship with your family members, and it could just be your immediate family. We weren't blessed to choose who our family members are sometimes. So this is a loaded question, but I'm talking specifically, even with your immediate family, how have you stewarded those relationships with your children, your parents, the relationships that you have selected? Are you a good friend, or are you one of those people that hangs out with them? But the moment things get tough, you're not the person to trust. Does that make sense? So that will be number 1. But if you're the person that you're trustworthy, you've built relationships, you invest in those relationships, then that's what number 5 is, okay? The next one is, how have you performed in your career and finances? 1 means you should probably be fired. 5 means, my goodness, I should be running the company, right? I've gotten to a place with, I've performed there, you know what I mean? I am more than a steward. I double, triple, quadruple what I've been entrusted with in my current finances and my career because of my stewardship. The next question is, how have you managed your time to date on a scale of 1 to 5? Are you an incredible time manager, or are you even lost right now in this moment? Right? So 1 or 5. And then now, thinking about some of the talents you wrote down, I want you to think about it from that perspective. Have you maximized on your God-given talents? 5 means that you implement them and use them on a regular basis for good. 1 means I don't use them at all. Okay, so once you get done with those questions, I want you to literally total your number of the score. Alrighty. Anybody want to speak up and say what their total score was? 16, 17, 11. Okay, let me tell you this, and this is why this is so important. Okay, when I did it, I was at 19, and the reality is anyone under 20 fails. What does that mean? That means that if God himself came here today and started looking at all of the talents and gifts that he gave you and literally gave you a test the way that we just tested, he would not be able to say, well done, my good and faithful servant. Think about that for just 1 minute. Why? Because if you really go back to the example that was set, you would have doubled it. And the reality is, we ourselves are being honest with ourselves, saying, ooh, I haven't taken care of my body. Ooh, I haven't really stewarded my relationships and my family that well. Oh my goodness, my career and finances definitely need some work. Does that make sense? And so the reason why this is so important, I'm not trying to make you feel depressed. What I want you to understand, that freedom comes when you understand that there's something that you can improve on. It doesn't mean that this is your future. What it means is that you are currently not operating under the excellence of being a good steward in one or various areas. Does that make sense? And so, hey, that's a challenge for me. And the reality is, my goal should be to be over 20 to 25. That should be my goal. But the reality is, there are current areas in my life currently where I'm just not being a good steward enough to be able to say, well done, good faithful servant. So I want you to think about that for just a minute, right? And so for my buddy Mike, that's his double problem.